All right, good morning, Lagos. When you hear that sound, you know it's time to talk some business here in some smooth breakfast with Valentine and myself. But to take us through this, we have, of course, the main man, Rotus. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, everybody listening. Lagos, beyond, so on and so forth.
And Rotus does not walk alone.
Of
He's
course.
here with Eromosele.
I'm
Good
not a
morning.
Liverpool fan, though. Please don't use that tag for me. I'm a Manchester United fan, proudly.
Wow. Are you
How did
claiming them
Yes.
this
yesterday
No,
go?
morning?
yesterday wasn't good, but I'm still claiming,
Solskjaer is very hopeful for the
Yes.
return leg in Nou Camp,
Optimism. Optimism.
PSG style. All right, good morning, Ugo. We have Ugodre here with us as well.
Hi, good morning. Hello,
Great.
Lagos.
Great to have you here on the show.
Same here.
Now, if you'd like to join the conversation this morning, you can send your messages to WhatsApp 0809 444 That's 0809 444 Comments, questions, anything at all, address to them. You can send Twitter. We're live at Smooth981FM. Use the hashtag Business Express 981.
All right, thank you so much. So the stock market, positive activity yesterday after I think about 4 or 5 days of negative performance. 0.12%, 29,193 points is where we closed. Still for the month, we're down by 4.3%. For the year, we're still down by 7%. I think we should start including some birthday shout outs for icons on the show. Yesterday, Mr. Pascal Dozier, who of course founded Diamond Bank, which is no more. Of course, he turned 80 years old, and of course, Mr. Alhaji Dangote turned 62 the day before on the 9th. As far as these guys are concerned, I mean, Dangote is 62 years old. He's still pushing ahead with his refinery, still moving forward. So happy belated birthday to the both
birthday.
of them. First story that we're going to be dealing with is this is in Nairametrics. The IMF ranks Nigeria's sovereign wealth fund as the second worst sovereign wealth fund in the world. Ugodre, what are your thoughts on this story? You guys are one of the first to break this one out. So the ranking is pretty. I think Qatar is the worst in the world. So Nigeria is only better than Qatar.
So,
What happened?
we kind of Qatar beat us to this, and it's not funny at all. We should
Not at
top
all.
in this chart. It's IMF season.
Yes.
Since last week, so
Correct.
IMF has just been bashing Nigeria left, right, center.
Heavy.
There was this Bloomberg report as well that sort of characterized Nigeria's economy that in dire states.
We have that here.
And then of course put Ghana at the best. So in this particular ranking, IMF was saying that, look, in terms of sovereign wealth funds, which a lot of countries do have, Nigeria basically was worst in Africa and second worst in the world in terms of how it's been, I think, managed. But then they say that in terms of top three ranked best performance, they mentioned Colombia, Ghana, and Chile. Ghana again.
Ghana
So
again.
Nigerians
Ghana
are like,
keep
what? I mean, like, what's going on?
every time they mention Ghana
yeah.
as the okay.
So Ghana again. But I mean, and then they go on to blame corruption as one of the reasons why Sovereign Wealth Fund is not working well. They also mentioned that most resource-rich countries tend to have challenges or have issues managing their resources.
Yes.
Right. Nigeria, of course, is blessed in terms of natural resources, but then we can't really make most of it, make anything out of it. And they also blame bribes, corruption, and a lot of the things that the current government promised to eradicate. So basically, and the main reason why we voted for Buhari in the first time, that's Nigerians in general, hasn't actually worked for it, because people still think that corruption is still a bane in this country, and it hasn't actually improved at all. Now, talking about the sovereign wealth fund, we actually do have the NSIA,
Right.
which is actually the organization that manages Nigeria's sovereign wealth.
Right.
And in 2017, they are yet to release their 2018 annual report. I think in 2017 they actually did very poorly. I think they couldn't pay dividend. Profit declined by I think about 81%.
Okay.
Right, in 2017 compared to 2016, and of course they blamed the Nigerians forex policy for the reason why they had that profit decline, because a lot of their assets were in dollars and blah blah blah. Kind of funny though, but I mean, it was huge decline in profits, and then they didn't pay dividend to any of the three tiers of the government. So I don't know if this was also one of the reasons why they were ranked that poorly. But of course, that Nigerian sovereign wealth fund is still something that's still being debated between the federal and the state government. The federal government feels the state government is not actually putting a lot more capital into Nigerian sovereign wealth fund. But the federal government thinks that, and in fact, it's not even as capitalized as it should be.
Right.
I mean, when you compare to others, there are some sovereign wealth funds that are probably as
Like
huge.
Norway now.
Yeah, probably bigger than Nigeria's
GDP.
total,
Yeah.
So, but here we are. Second from the bottom.
Second from the bottom. If anybody's curious, so it's Qatar is number 1, Nigeria is number. I'll give you the top 5. Top 5 worst sovereign wealth funds according to the IMF: Qatar, Nigeria, Sudan, Equatorial Guinea, and Chad. And Ugodre has already mentioned the top 3: Colombia, Ghana, and Chile. So again,
Norway was 4th, by the way.
Norway was 4th. Interesting. Ghana,
we actually have within us with some within our midst some very interesting countries as well. The Saudi Arabia there,
Yeah, they're pretty low, yeah.
Mostly oil-rich countries.
Well, all down. So
I think for this particular rating, the major focus was on corporate governance and transparency, as opposed to the actual performance of the funds
itself.
And I mean, all rich countries just tend to find themselves at this lower end when it comes to transparency. So,
okay, if anyone's curious, the NSI, by the way, is the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority. That's who's
And
supposed to be.
Sheka is also asking here on WhatsApp, what is sovereign wealth funds?
Okay, well,
throw more light on that.
So sovereign wealth funds basically is funds that governments. So whenever government makes money, right, it keeps part of it. So it's just like a retained earnings for a company. So government keeps part of that money, and then rather than just keeping it in the bank or something, they create a company, right, that is managed by experts or managed by portfolio managers, and that company basically takes in all government's additional revenue or the country's additional revenue, excess revenue. It's just like saving for the latter day,
right?
And then they invest this money in all sorts of things. It could be projects within the country, it could be projects outside the country, and a lot of sovereign wealth funds actually finds its way into startups and a lot of all these big, huge companies you see around the world today. They are mostly financed by sovereign wealth funds, and Norway basically started this, and they've taken it to a different level. So Nigeria just joined the bandwagon, I think, a decade ago. So.
And Norway has like 5 million people. I think that's their population or something like that. Very, very small.
So they have enough money to take care of their children and
their children's children, and for generations, trillions of dollars there.
Fantastic. Now, Gbenga Kamu is asking a question, well, giving a comment here on WhatsApp as well. Good morning. As far as economic development and growth goes, is there only one economic plan or system that can bring this about? Because the IMF and World Bank seem to believe it's only their way or the highway. But the Asian tigers did it in a different way. So what's your take? That's
you
the
are
first
my
question.
man. That is what I've always said.
let me quickly put the second question in so you can answer both at the same time. Is it the money in the sovereign wealth fund? Is the money not enough, or the problem is with the management of the fund? So talking about the
right. So Eromosele already just mentioned it as
I think so corporate governance, transparency. I think those are some of the factors. I mean, from this particular IMF report, that was what the major focus was. Basically
so it's the management. Okay, Ugodre already mentioned it. Let's go into it now. This Bloomberg article here saying only growth can diffuse Nigeria's poverty time bomb. They mention, I mean, we've talked about a number of these things for quite a while. It's not too long of an article, but they mentioned the number of issues that the country is facing. They have a table here. The title of the headline on the table is "Going Nowhere Fast: Nigeria's Performance on Select Indicators and Indexes." They're comparing our performance in 2014 to 2018. Gentlemen, for example, foreign direct investment 2014 was 5 billion, 2018 dropped in half to 2 billion. Unemployment rate in 2014, 6%, 2018, 23%. You get the gist. Inflation, GDP growth, debt to GDP, debt service to revenue, everything just pretty much. So Ugodre is not a big fan of these. I don't know. Ugodre, explain yourself now. What's your take on how they are approaching what Nigeria needs to do? And
let me wait for Eromosele. Let me see whether he'll be on my side.
Okay, Eromosele.
So here's the thing. I mean, going through this report, you would actually be sad because it seems like they just pointed out all the and made a judgment on the country. Yeah, there are indicators that have definitely worsened, but you also have to think about the fact that we actually went through a period of lower oil prices, which sort of dragged us into a recession, and then the FX issues that we're having now. At the end of this report, the major factor that was pointed out was the need to improve on FX management. So the need to converge all the various exchange rates that you have in the market and adopt a free float a free float exchange rates regime to sort of attract foreign inflows into the market. But I mean, looking at the current situation of things, will devaluation really be the best thing that we can do? I mean, what's our export base like?
Right.
We're basically still just
Oil,
exporting
mostly
oil.
oil,
So
yeah.
essentially, as oil prices continue to improve, we'll be fine. Once oil prices start to go down again, we're just going to be back where we started.
Ugodre, so what do
Yeah,
you-
so I mean, like you very well know, and a lot of people who we banter around with know that I actually despise these things.
right.
Right. Yes. I mean, we'll know that the economy is not in good shape, but please, this is beginning to look like some kind of onslaught.
Mm.
That's what I say. Looks like some kind of lobbying as well.
Yeah.
Now, let me just take you to one of the paragraphs here. It says, in longer term, Nigeria, excuse me, should aim to float its currency
Mm.
as proposed by the International Monetary Fund and Atiku Abubakar,
Mm.
Buhari's challenger in February's election. In the short term, unifying the exchange rates and liberalizing access to hard currency would be a big step forward. So the tall and short of the entire
It's
article
FX.
is just FX.
Right. It's FX.
It's just FX. I mean, not that I have anything against floating or whatever, but it's just against. So as far as they're concerned, if you don't float your currency, then you're not moving in the right direction.
Mm.
And that's actually wrong as far as I'm concerned as well, because there are a lot of countries who don't have floating exchange rate, but they're experiencing growth. China is an example. So I've always been for homegrown economics, right? And if we don't have homegrown policies, things won't just work. You also have to look at the kind of government that you have, right? Do you have the kind of government that can maybe have the discipline to implement so-called IMF policies or World Bank policies that we expect? But if you look at the kind of government you have, the kind of country you kind of mix and make up you have, then you just need homegrown economics. So, but at the end of the day, this is just all about floating the naira.
About floating the naira. Okay.
I do have a
thanks for
few
that.
comments
Yep.
here. Ibrahim says, I like how the IMF has been bashing us in the last few days. Forget the objective behind this. Let's focus on the message. We have been living in denial of these things. It needs to be engraved in our consciousness so we can all understand the explosion waiting to happen. I keep saying it, our population growth is our biggest challenge,
All
says
right.
Ibrahim.
Thank
Then
you for that,
Dapo
Ibrahim. Yep. Dapo.
goes on to say, how come FBNH is yet to release its result for last year? I thought results are meant to be out on or before the end of March.
That's a good question. I think they put
they filed for a
an
delay, so
extension,
they'll most likely be releasing
So mostly,
full year
yeah.
and Q1.
Okay.
Holdcos typically delay a bit because it's a lot of companies in one. So I think, I'm not sure, that's FBNH, right?
Yes, FBNH,
FBNH.
yeah.
Holdcos, yeah.
And then he goes on to say, to be sincere, I don't believe the average man on the street benefits so much from the increase or otherwise of oil prices, just the politicians having less money to play around with. And any news about diversification of the economy? Same old tales, says Jiminy.
Jiminy, everybody is affected by oil prices. But thank you for your message.
All right, we can only take one more message and then we wrap up. Now, Rotus, you need to see the numbers of young men who loiter around in the morning because they have nothing to do.
Mm.
They smoke and drink from as early as 7 a.m. So we're sitting on gunpowder. Need only a spark. That's from Benga Kamo.
That's all the time we have. Is that it? Okay,
Yeah.
quick headline. I really wanted us to get into this, but Business Day has this headline: petrol subsidy in 2018 higher than health, education, infrastructure, and defense spend. They threw out some numbers. This subsidy, we need to do something. I think it was 730 billion, and it was just higher than the number of amounts that they had allocated to all these other ministries and so on.
So I've got this crazy
Yeah.
idea.
What do you want to do? You should just yank it.
What if people who drive, people should not come after me.
Okay.
What if people who
Freely.
drive SUVs
Yeah.
get to pay higher fuel than those?
Who drive regular
Yeah.
cars?
What
Or
would
a
But
petrol
then
tax.
the problem is that, like, how do you really distinguish?
Who
It's
has
like,
what?
You're driving
Yeah,
a
like, you
Range
can
of
drive an old
1999.
SUV. Yeah, driving a DC. It's tough though, but I think that they've got to move subsidy from the way government manages it to some kind of private subsidy, because private subsidy exists in markets.
Right.
It's typical where you're probably subsidizing one product, subsidizing another,
yeah.
and all of you. That might probably work, because I think the problem with the government here is that they just feel like they're transferring it to the poor.
To the poor,
That's usually
exactly.
the problem. So they can't just get their mind off that. Do you understand? Like, poor stuff. But I mean, what we can continue is have government subsidize.
Ugodre
All right.
and Eromosele,
Thank you
guys
so much, Rotus.
All
Thank
right.
you, Ugodre. Thank you, Eromosele. You can join Rotus again tomorrow morning at 6:45. We'll be here with all your news stories. If you have any more questions, you can still ask and he'll take them tomorrow morning.
Yes,
right?
indeed. Yes, indeed.
Okay, Lagos, we have to go now.